Captain Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars. He had been waiting for this day for 3,000 years. Well, not him personally, but his people had been waiting. Today was the day humans would show themselves to the galaxy again. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. His crew worked at their stations, checking systems one last time. Dr. Park So-jin sat at her desk, reading files about the alien species they would meet soon. Commander Kim Hyo-jun stood near the weapons control, his hands ready but relaxed. "Are we ready?" Lee Tae-ho asked. "All ships report ready, Captain," Kim Hyo-jun said. "The fleet is in position." Lee Tae-ho nodded. Around Earth, thousands of human ships waited in the darkness of space. They had been invisible for so long that most aliens thought humans were dead. The galaxy had forgotten about them completely. Far away on a space station called Council Prime, alien beings were having a normal day. The Galactic Council had 12 different alien species working together. They kept peace in the galaxy and made sure everyone followed the rules. Wars were rare now. Most problems got solved with talking and trade deals. The council members looked very different from each other. Some were tall and thin with blue skin. Others were short and covered in fur. A few looked like giant insects, but they all worked together to keep the galaxy safe and peaceful. That morning, everything changed. "Sir, we're getting strange readings." "From the Sol system," said a young alien worker at the monitoring station. The Sol system was the old name for Earth's solar system. For 3,000 years it had been marked as a dead zone on all the maps. No ships went there. No life existed there. Or so everyone thought. "That's impossible," said Council Leader Zeftos, a tall being with 4 arms and golden eyes. "Sol has been dead for thousands of years. Check your equipment." The worker checked everything twice, then 3 times. The readings were real. Massive energy signals were coming from the Sol system. The kind of energy that only came from very advanced technology. "Sir, whatever is in that system, it's big," the worker said. "And it's moving." Within an hour, every major space station in the galaxy was watching the Sol system. Scientists and military officers stared at their screens in confusion. Something impossible was happening. Then the ships appeared. They didn't fly in from another star system. They didn't come through the normal space lanes that all ships used. One moment, empty space surrounded Earth. The next moment, thousands of ships were there. The ships were unlike anything the Council had ever seen. They were smooth and curved, almost like they were alive. They seemed to shift and change as you looked at them, sometimes solid, sometimes almost see-through. They moved through space in ways that shouldn't be possible. The Council's best scientists looked at the ships and felt afraid. The technology was far beyond anything they understood. These ships could appear and disappear at will. They moved faster than light without using the jump gates that everyone else needed. Then came the message. "This is Captain Lee Tae-ho of the Human Collective," the voice said in perfect galactic standard language. "We are ready to rejoin galactic civilization." The message played on every council communication system at the same time. Somehow the humans had broken into the most secure networks in the galaxy without anyone noticing. Council Leader Zeftos felt his blood turn cold. Humans? The species that had gone extinct 3,000 years ago? It was impossible. He quickly called up the old files on humans. The records were brief and sad. Humans had lived on a planet called Earth. They had just learned how to travel between stars when their civilization collapsed. Wars and environmental damage had killed them all. The planet had gone dark, and no human signals had been detected. But now they were back, and they were clearly not the same primitive species that had disappeared so long ago. "Get me Admiral Korvax," Zeftos ordered, "and call an emergency session of the full council. We have a situation." Within the hour, representatives from all 12 council species gathered in the great meeting chamber. The room buzzed with worried voices in dozens of different languages. Everyone had the same questions. How had the humans survived? Where had they been hiding? How did they get so advanced? Admiral Korvax, head of Council Military Forces, stood before the assembly. His 6 legs clicked nervously on the floor as he spoke. "We've done deep scans of the Sol system," he said. "What we found is troubling." Images appeared on the main screen. Earth looked green and blue and very much alive. Cities covered the surface, but they looked strange. Some seemed to phase in and out of reality. Others appeared to be underground or even floating in the air. "The planet shows signs of supporting a massive population," the Admiral continued, "but we can't get accurate readings. Something is blocking our scans." More images appeared. Mars, Jupiter's moons, even the asteroid belt showed signs of human activity. But again, everything seemed to flicker and shift, as if the humans were there but not quite there. "How many of them are there?" asked Counselor Vexitara, a being that looked like a walking tree. "We don't know," Admiral Korvax admitted. "Their technology is scrambling our sensors, but based on the energy signatures, we estimate millions of ships." The room fell silent. The entire Council fleet had maybe 10,000 ships. If humans had millions, they could conquer the galaxy in days. "What do they want?" whispered another counselor. That was the question that scared everyone the most. Humans had been gone for 3,000 years. In that time, they had somehow become incredibly advanced. They could hide entire civilizations. They could build ships that defied physics. They could break into any computer system. What did beings with that kind of power want with the galaxy? Council leader Zeftos stood up slowly. His golden eyes were dim with worry. "Send a response to Captain Lee Tae-ho," he said. "Tell him the Galactic Council welcomes the return of humanity. Ask him to come to Council Prime for formal first contact." As the message was sent, every being in the room felt the same fear. The galaxy had just changed forever. The humans were back and no one knew what that meant. On his ship near Earth, Captain Lee Tae-ho smiled as he received the Council's message. Everything was going according to plan. Humanity had spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment. Soon, the galaxy would understand what humans had become during their long absence. Soon, they would learn why humans had chosen to disappear in the first place. And soon, the Council would realize that the galaxy needed humanity far more than humanity needed the galaxy. Ambassador Choi Da-bin walked through the docking bay of Council Prime Station. Her footsteps echoed in the large space as dozens of alien beings watched her. She could feel their fear and curiosity. They had never seen a living human before. She looked like any normal human woman, but the aliens didn't know what was normal for her species. Her black hair was tied back neatly. She wore a simple blue uniform with no weapons visible. But the ship she had arrived in told a different story. The human diplomatic ship sat in the docking bay like a sleeping predator. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The hull seemed to ripple like water. Weapons ports were hidden, but everyone could sense they were there. The ship looked like it could destroy the entire station without breaking a sweat. "Ambassador Choi," said Council Leader Zeftos as he approached. "Welcome to Council Prime. We are honored by your visit." Choi smiled politely. "Thank you, Council Leader. My people are eager to renew our relationship with galactic civilization." As they walked toward the meeting chamber, Choi noticed everything. She saw the defensive systems built into the walls. She counted the number of security guards. She observed the escape routes and the communication arrays. Her people had taught her well. The main council chamber was huge and circular. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat around a great table. They all stared at Choi as she took her seat. Some looked curious, others looked afraid, a few looked angry. "Before we begin," said Counselor Vexitara, "we must ask, where have humans been for the past 3,000 years? Our records show your species went extinct." Choi nodded. "That's exactly what we wanted you to think." The room fell silent. Every alien leaned forward to hear better. 3,000 years ago, humanity faced a choice, Choi began. Our planet was dying. We had wars, pollution, and not enough resources. We could have fought each other until we all died. Instead, we chose something different. She touched a device on her wrist. Images appeared in the air above the table. They showed Earth as it used to be, brown, polluted, and covered with the scars of war. We called it the Extinction Vault Project, Choi explained. We decided to fake our own death and disappear completely. More images appeared. These showed massive construction projects underground and in space. Humans working together to build things the Council had never seen before. We built cities deep underground on Earth and Mars. We learned how to hide our heat signatures and energy sources. We developed technology to phase our settlements into pocket dimensions. To the outside galaxy, we simply vanished. Admiral Korvac spoke up. But why? Why hide instead of asking for help? Choi's expression grew serious. Because we learned something important about survival. When a species is dying, it has two choices. It can fight for the scraps that remain, or it can change completely. She gestured and new images appeared. These showed humans working in impossible conditions. Some were living in space without suits. Others were working in lava flows or under crushing pressure. We spent 3,000 years doing something no species has ever done before. We adapted ourselves to survive anything. We learned to live in hard vacuum. We modified ourselves to eat radiation. We created humans who could survive the death of stars. The council members looked at each other in shock. What Choi was describing was impossible. No species could change that much in just 3,000 years. How? Whispered Counselor Nethros, a being that looked like a giant jellyfish. Engineer Yoon Jae-wook can explain better than I can, Choi said. A new human appeared in the chamber. He wasn't there physically, it was a hologram. But the technology was so advanced that he looked completely real. Honored Council, Engineer Yoon said with a bow. What we did was simple in concept but difficult in practice. We built machines that could rewrite our genetic code in real time, the aliens gasped. Genetic modification was common, but what Yoon was describing was far beyond anything they knew. We created adaptation chambers. A human could enter one chamber and come out able to breathe methane. Another chamber could make someone strong enough to crush steel. We didn't just survive extinction. We made extinction impossible. Images showed humans living in every imaginable environment. Some swam in the cores of gas giant planets. Others walked on the surface of stars. A few seemed to be living in the vacuum of space between galaxies. Council leader Zeftos felt sick. How many of you are there? Several trillion, Choi said, casually. We've colonized about 12,000 star systems, all hidden, of course. The number hit the Council like a physical blow. The entire Galactic Council controlled only 50,000 systems, and most of those had very small populations. Humans had secretly become one of the largest civilizations in the galaxy. But that's not the most important thing, Choi continued. The most important thing is why we're revealing ourselves now. She stood up and walked around the table. Every alien's eyes followed her. For 3,000 years, we've been watching the galaxy. We've seen wars start and end. We've seen species go extinct. We've seen natural disasters destroy entire worlds. And do you know what we discovered? No one answered. We discovered that the galaxy needs protectors. Species that can survive anything, and help others survive too. That's what we became during our long sleep. We became the guardians the galaxy needs. Admiral Korvax tried to sound brave. And if we don't want your protection? Choi smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. Admiral Korvax, commanding officer of the 7th Defense Fleet, born on Kethtar Prime 43 years ago. Your fleet has 847 ships, most of them over 50 years old. Your main weakness is that your ships can't operate in high radiation environments. The Admiral's face went pale. How did she know all that? We have files on every military unit in Council space, Choi said. We know the weak points in your defensive grids. We know which of your planets would fall first in a war. We've been watching and learning for 3,000 years. She walked back to her seat. But don't worry. We're not here to conquer anyone. We're here to make sure no one ever faces extinction again. What do you want from us? Asked Council. Leader Zeftos. Partnership, Choi said. We want to rejoin galactic civilization as equals. We want to share some of our knowledge to make life better for everyone. And we want recognition that humanity has the right to protect species that can't protect themselves. The council members whispered among themselves in their various languages. Some sounded angry. Others sounded afraid. All of them sounded confused. "We need time to discuss this," said Council Leader Zeftos. "Of course," Choi said. "Take all the time you need. But remember, every moment you delay, more species somewhere in the galaxy move closer to extinction. We've prevented 17 natural disasters just since I arrived here 3 hours ago." As the council session ended, the alien representatives filed out of the chamber talking nervously among themselves. They had come expecting to meet a primitive species asking for help. Instead, they had met beings who were so advanced that they made the council look like children playing with toys. Ambassador Choi Dabin remained in her seat watching them go. Soon Admiral Song Mi-young's voice came through her communication device. "How did it go?" the Admiral asked. "Exactly as we predicted," Choi replied. "They're scared, confused, and trying to figure out if we're a threat." "Are we?" Choi smiled. "Only if they try to stop us from saving the galaxy." Outside the station, hundreds of human ships waited invisibly in space. The galaxy was about to change in ways no one could imagine. Humanity had returned, and this time, they were ready for anything. President Kang Subin stood before the full Galactic Council assembly. Behind her, a massive screen showed the image of Earth, green, blue, and very much alive. Around the Great Chamber, representatives from 12 species watched her with a mixture of fear and fascination. She looked small compared to some of the aliens in the room, but everyone knew that appearances meant nothing when it came to humans. They had learned that lesson already. "Honored representatives," President Kang began, her voice calm and clear. "Humanity is ready to rejoin galactic civilization. However, we must discuss the terms of our return." Council Leader Zeftos shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The word terms made him nervous. Usually, species asking to join the council begged for membership. They didn't make demands. "We are prepared to welcome humanity back," he said carefully. "What exactly are you proposing?" President Kang smiled. It was the same smile that Ambassador Choi had used, polite, but somehow dangerous. "First, we require immediate full membership in the Galactic Council, not as junior members or probationary members, as equal partners with full voting rights." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several alien representatives stood up and started talking at once. The idea was outrageous. New species always had to prove themselves for decades before getting full membership. "Impossible," shouted Councillor Vextara. "Council membership requires years of evaluation and gradual integration." "That brings me to my second point, President." Kang continued as if she hadn't heard the objections. "Humanity will share certain technologies with the Council to improve life for all species. However, we will maintain military superiority to ensure galactic stability." This time, the silence was even more shocked than the previous outburst. Military superiority? No one species was supposed to be stronger than all the others combined. Admiral Korvac stood up. "You're talking about dominating the galaxy." "No, Admiral," said a new voice. General Lim Dong-hyun materialized in the chamber as a hologram. "We're talking about protecting it." The general looked like a normal human man in a simple military uniform, but his eyes held the weight of someone who had seen things the Council couldn't imagine. "To demonstrate our commitment to galactic peace," General Lim said, "I'd like to show you something." The lights dimmed. The main screen changed to show a view of space around Council Prime Station. At first, everything looked normal. Then, one by one, human ships began appearing. They materialized out of nothing. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of sleek vessels that had been invisible moments before. They surrounded the station completely, their weapons powered but not aimed. "These ships have been here for 3 weeks," General Lim explained calmly. "They've been protecting this station from a meteor storm that your sensors never detected. We've also been quietly stopping 2 different terrorist plots and preventing a plague outbreak on Level 7. The council representatives stared at the screens in horror. Thousands of human ships had been sitting right next to their most important station, and no one had known. "This isn't just here," General Lim continued. "Right now, Human ships are present in every major system in Council space. We've been quietly preventing disasters and stopping conflicts for months. Your territory is safe because we've been making it safe. President Kang stepped forward again. Which brings me to our third condition. Humanity claims the right to intervene in any situation that threatens the survival of any species. We will not ask permission. We will not wait for Council approval. When a species faces extinction, we act. And our fourth condition, she continued before anyone could respond, is territorial recognition. Over the past 3,000 years, we have established colonies in 12,000 star systems. We claim these systems as human territory and expect the Council to recognize our sovereignty over them. 12,000 systems, the number was staggering. It meant humans controlled almost a quarter of all inhabited space in the galaxy. Councillor Nethros's voice shook as he spoke. You're asking us to hand over control of the galaxy. We're asking you to accept reality, President Kang replied. The galaxy has already changed. We're just making it official. Dr. Hanbora appeared as another hologram. She was an elderly woman with kind eyes, but when she spoke, her words chilled everyone in the room. Perhaps you'd like to understand exactly what humanity has become during our absence, she said. Allow me to introduce you to the Evolutionary Adaptation Program. The screen changed to show humans working in impossible environments. Some were swimming through liquid metal on the surface of a star. Others were walking unprotected through the vacuum of space. A few seemed to be living inside black holes. We can now adapt any human to any environment within a single generation, Dr. Han explained. We have humans who eat radiation for food. We have humans who can survive absolute zero temperatures. We have humans who can process any atmosphere or liquid. More images appeared. These showed different types of humans, some with gills, some with metallic skin, some who seemed to be made of living energy. We've created specialized subspecies for every imaginable condition, Dr. Han continued. We have void walkers who can travel between stars without ships. We have deep dwellers who live in the cores of planets. We have time dancers who can survive temporal anomalies. Council leader Zeftos found his voice. What are you saying? I'm saying that extinction is no longer possible for humanity, Dr. Han replied. We can survive anything. The death of stars, the collapse of galaxies, the end of time itself. We are the first species to make ourselves truly immortal. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. If humans could survive anything, then they would outlive every other species in the galaxy. They would be the last beings standing when the universe itself died. Why tell us this? Whispered Councillor Vextara. President Kang's expression softened slightly. Because we don't want to be alone. We became immortal not for ourselves, but so we could help others survive too. Every technique we've developed, every adaptation we've created, can be shared with other species. She gestured, and the screen showed beautiful worlds where different alien species lived alongside adapted humans. We can help the Kethtari survive in high-gravity environments. We can teach the Nethros to process toxic atmospheres. We can show the Vextani how to live underwater. No species ever has to go extinct again if they accept our help. And if we refuse your conditions? Asked Admiral Korvax. General Lim answered, Then you refuse them. We won't force you to accept our help, but we won't ask permission to save species that want to survive. The message was clear. Humanity would do what they thought was right regardless of what the Council decided. They were simply being polite by asking first. President Kang looked around the chamber at all the worried faces. You have 24 hours to make your decision. Vote to accept our conditions and we become partners in building a better galaxy. Vote to reject them and we'll respect your choice. But either way, we're not going back into hiding. As the session ended, the alien representatives filed out talking, nervously among themselves. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to negotiate, most just wanted to hide. But hiding wouldn't work. Humanity had spent 3,000 years learning how to survive anything. They had become something beyond what any species had ever imagined. The galaxy would never be the same. President Kang remained in the chamber, watching Earth on the main screen. Tomorrow, everything would change. The question was whether the change would come through cooperation or through fear. Either way, humanity was home to stay. General Lim's image flickered beside her. Do you think they'll accept? It doesn't matter, President Kang replied. They'll accept eventually. When they realize we're the only thing standing between them and extinction, they'll understand that we're not their conquerors. We're their guardians. Outside, the human fleet waited patiently in the darkness of space. They had waited 3,000 years. They could wait a little longer. The vote took 18 hours instead of 24. When it was over, Council Leader Zeftos stood before the assembly with shaking hands and announced the result. By a vote of 7 species in favor, 3 against, and 2 abstentions, the Galactic Council accepts humanity's terms for rejoining galactic civilization. The chamber was quiet except for the soft hum of translation devices. Nobody cheered. Nobody celebrated. They had voted yes not because they wanted to, but because they were afraid of what would happen if they voted no. Councillor Bei Yunji walked into the chamber to take her seat as humanity's representative. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, not the voice of the galaxy's most powerful civilization. But when she sat down at the council table, everything changed. The other representatives couldn't look at her directly. They knew she had access to information about their species that their own governments didn't have. They knew she spoke for beings who could survive the end of the universe. Thank you for your trust, Councillor Bei said quietly. Humanity will not abuse the faith you've shown in us. Over the following weeks, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had expected. Human colonies that had been hidden for 3,000 years began revealing themselves. Ships that had been invisible suddenly appeared in every major system. Businesses that aliens had been using for decades admitted they were actually run by humans. Director Oh Kyung-soo stood in the main office of Galactic Trade Central, the largest shipping company in council space. Around him, hundreds of alien workers stared in shock as he made his announcement. Effective immediately, Galactic Trade Central is revealing its true ownership, he said. This company has been operated by humans for the past 200 years. The aliens couldn't believe it. GTC handled shipping for half the galaxy. It employed millions of beings across thousands of worlds, and all along, it had been a human company. But how? Asked Supervisor Klexton, a reptilian being who had worked for GTC for 30 years. We never saw any humans. Director O smiled. You did see us. You just didn't know we were human. Our people learned long ago how to look like any species when necessary. The truth was disturbing. For centuries, humans had been living among the other species, disguised as locals. They had been shopkeepers, traders, technicians, and even government officials. No one had suspected. Similar revelations happened across the galaxy. The best restaurant on Vextar Prime was run by humans. The most advanced medical center in the core worlds had been staffed by humans for decades. Even some of the council's own technical staff turned out to be human. Captain Ryu Jin-ho commanded the first official human peacekeeping fleet. His ships were visible now, patrolling the old border zones where wars used to happen. The sight of them prevented conflicts before they could start. Patrol 7, this is Captain Ryu, he said into his communicator. We have a dispute developing in the Kethtar system. Standard intervention protocol. Within hours, human ships surrounded both fleets that had been preparing to fight. The commanders of both sides received the same message. Withdraw your forces or they will be disabled. There was no negotiation. There were no threats or demands. The human ships simply waited. Both alien fleets pulled back without firing a buzz shot. It was the new reality. Wars had become impossible because humans wouldn't allow them to happen. But not everyone was happy with the changes. This is intolerable, growled Admiral Korvax to his senior staff. We're not governing the galaxy anymore, we're just following human orders. His aide, Commander Sildax, nodded nervously. Sir, several species have approached us about forming a coalition. They want to challenge human authority. Which species? The Kethtari Empire, the Zixthari Federation, the Namtar Alliance, and the Free Worlds of Vexara. They believe that if we work together, we can contain human influence. Admiral Korvax thought about this. 5 species working together would have significant military power. Not enough to defeat humanity, but perhaps enough to negotiate from a position of strength. Arrange a secret meeting, he decided, but make sure the humans don't find out. What Admiral Korvax didn't know was that the humans already knew. General Lim Dong-hyun read the report about the secret meeting from his command ship near Earth. Should we stop them? Asked his aide. No, General Lim replied. Let them meet, let them plan. When they're ready to test us, we'll show them exactly what happens to species that threaten galactic stability. The secret meeting took place on a hidden base in neutral space. Representatives from 5 species gathered to discuss their concerns about human dominance. We cannot allow this to continue, said General Kaxthor of the Kethtari Empire. Humans are making decisions that affect all our lives without consulting anyone. They claim to be protecting us, added Admiral Nixera of the Zixthari Federation. But protection and control look very much the same. We need to show them that we won't be ruled by fear, declared Commander Veltash of the Namtar Alliance. They spent days planning their demonstration. They would coordinate their fleets and challenge human authority in 5 different systems simultaneously. If humans tried to stop them, they would claim they were defending their sovereign rights. 3. Weeks later, the coalition put their plan into action. Ships from 5 different species moved into contested territory and declared their independence from Council authority. They sent a joint message to humanity. We will not be your subjects. The response was swift and absolute. Captain Ryu Jin-ho received new orders that made him smile grimly. All units implement Protocol 7, full demonstration of capabilities. Within 6 hours, every rebel fleet found themselves surrounded by human ships that had appeared out of nowhere. But the humans didn't attack. Instead, they did something much more frightening. Every rebel ship lost power simultaneously. Their engines stopped. Their weapons went dark. Their life support system switched to emergency backup. They couldn't move, couldn't fight, and couldn't escape. This is Captain Ryu Jin-ho to all coalition forces. His voice came over every communication system. Your ships are currently under our control. We can restart your systems or we can leave them off. The choice is yours. General Kaxthor tried to sound defiant. This is an act of war. No, General, Captain Ryu replied calmly. This is a demonstration. If we wanted war, your ships would be debris by now. Instead, they're just temporarily inconvenienced. The demonstration lasted exactly 3 hours. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the human ships vanished. Power returned to the rebel vessels. Everything worked normally again. But the message was clear. Humans could disable any ship in the galaxy whenever they wanted to. Fighting them was not just futile, it was impossible. The coalition collapsed within days. The 5 species that had challenged human authority sent formal apologies and returned to their original territories. Counselor Bai Yun-ji addressed the full assembly after the crisis ended. Her words were gentle, but firm. We understand that some species are concerned about human influence in galactic affairs. We want to be clear about our intentions. We are not here to rule you, we are here to protect you. She gestured, and the main screen showed images of thriving worlds where different species lived in peace. In the past month, we have prevented 4 natural disasters, stopped 2 wars before they started, and cured 3 different diseases that were threatening entire populations. This is what we do. This is why we exist. The screen showed more images. Human rescue ships saving alien colonies from asteroid impacts. Human medical teams fighting plagues on distant worlds. Human engineers fixing dying stars to save inhabited systems. Any species that wants our help will receive it freely. Any species that prefers to handle their own affairs will be left alone. But any species that threatens the stability and safety of others will be stopped. The message was simple and terrifying. Humanity had become the galaxy's guardians, whether anyone wanted them to be or not. As the weeks passed, the new reality settled in. The galaxy was safer than it had ever been. Wars were impossible. Natural disasters were quickly handled. Diseases were cured almost as soon as they appeared, but freedom felt different when someone else was making sure you were free. Director Oh Kyung-soo looked out at the stars from his office on Council Prime. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had expected. Soon, every species would have to decide whether they wanted to live under human protection or try to survive on their own. Most would choose protection. The alternative was too frightening to consider. Humanity had returned to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as gardeners. And like any good gardener, they would make sure their garden flourished whether the plants wanted to grow or not. 6 months after humanity's return, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy peace. Trade flowed freely between systems. Wars had become impossible. Natural disasters were handled quickly and efficiently. For most beings, life was better than it had ever been. But some species still resented living under human protection. The test came on a quiet Tuesday morning in the council chambers. Fleet Admiral Park Chan-woo was reviewing patrol reports when his aide rushed in with urgent news. "Sir, we have a problem. 5 species have just declared independence from the council." Admiral Park looked up from his reports. He was a calm man with gray hair and steady hands. He had been expecting this day for months. "Which species?" "The Keth-Tari Empire, the Zix-Thari Federation, the Moltar Consortium, the Velnari Republic, and the Outer Rim Colonies. They've coordinated their announcements. They're calling it the Liberation Alliance." Admiral Park nodded slowly. He had files on all 5 species. He knew their leaders, their military capabilities, and their weaknesses. More importantly, he knew why they were rebelling. What are their demands? They want humans to withdraw from their territory completely. No protection, no intervention, no oversight. They say they'd rather face extinction as free beings than live as protected pets. "I see." Admiral Park stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Council Prime Station bustled with activity from dozens of different species. Most of them were happy with the new order, but not all of them. "Patch me through to Ambassador Lee Nari," he said. Ambassador Lee appeared as a hologram within minutes. She was younger than most human leaders, but her eyes held the wisdom of someone who had studied galactic politics for decades. "Admiral Park, I assume you've heard about the Liberation Alliance." "Yes, what's your assessment?" "They're sincere," Ambassador Lee replied. "They genuinely believe they can govern themselves without human oversight. They see our protection as oppression." "Can they survive without us?" Ambassador Lee was quiet for a moment. "The Keth-Tari and Zix-Thari might manage for a few years. The others will face serious problems within months. The Moltar system has 3 unstable stars. The Velnari homeworld is due for a major earthquake soon, and the Outer Rim colonies are about to face a plague outbreak. So they'll come crawling back, eventually, but a lot of beings will die first." Admiral Park considered this. Humanity had spent 3,000 years learning that survival required difficult choices. Sometimes you had to save people from themselves. "Initiate Protocol 9, he decided. "Full withdrawal from all Liberation Alliance territory. Give them exactly what they asked for." Within hours, human ships began pulling out of the rebel systems. Protection fleets moved to neutral space. Medical stations closed down. Environmental monitoring systems shut off. Rescue ships returned to base. For the first time in months, the 5 rebel species were completely on their own. At first, they celebrated. General Kaxthor of the Keth-Tari Empire held a massive victory parade. "We have proven that humans are not our masters," he declared to cheering crowds. Prime Minister Zil-Anna of the Zix-Thari Federation gave speeches about the importance of freedom and self-determination. "We would rather die free than live as slaves," she announced. The celebration lasted exactly 3 weeks. The first crisis hit the Moltar Consortium when one of their unstable stars began showing signs of imminent collapse. Without human monitoring equipment, they didn't detect the problem until it was almost too late. President Mortek sent frantic messages to every spacefaring species he could think of. None of them had the technology to stabilize a dying star. Within days, 2 Moltar colonies had to be evacuated as solar radiation made their worlds uninhabitable. The second crisis hit the Velnari Republic when the predicted earthquake struck their homeworld. It was a magnitude 9.7 quake that destroyed 3 major cities and killed over 1 million beings. The Velnari government called for international aid, but no one had the advanced rescue equipment that humans had used for such disasters. Recovery efforts moved slowly, and thousands more died in the aftermath. The third crisis was the plague that hit the Outer Rim colonies. It was a viral infection that spread quickly through their trading networks. Human medical databases could have identified the pathogen within hours and provided a cure within days. Instead, the plague spread for months before local doctors figured out how to treat it. By then, it had infected 40 different worlds and killed tens of millions of beings. Dr. Zhonghwan Su watched the reports from his office on Earth. As director of Galactic rehabilitation projects, he had access to all the data about the suffering in Liberation Alliance territory. "We could stop this," his assistant said quietly. "One medical ship could cure that plague in a week." "I know," Dr. Zhong replied, "but they asked us to leave them alone." "So we just watch them die?" Dr. Zhong was quiet for a long moment. "We wait. When they're ready to ask for help, we'll be there." The breaking point came 4 months later when the Keth-Tari Empire faced invasion from a hostile neighbor. The Drakmori had been waiting for decades for a chance to attack Keth-Tari territory. With humans no longer providing protection, they saw their opportunity. The Keth-Tari military fought bravely, but they were outmatched. The Drakmori had newer ships and better weapons. Worse, they were using tactics that the Keth-Tari had never seen before. General Kaxthor watched his fleets get destroyed one by one. His homeworld was only days away from invasion when he finally broke. He sent a message to Admiral Park. "We request immediate assistance from the human collective." The response came within minutes. "Assistance is on the way." Human ships appeared in the Keth-Tari system so fast it seemed like magic. They didn't fire a single shot. Instead, they simply surrounded the Drakmori invasion fleet and sent a message. "This is Fleet Admiral Park Chan-woo. You have entered human-protected space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The Drakmori commander tried to sound defiant. "Humans have no authority here. The Keth-Tari rejected your protection." "The Keth-Tari have requested our assistance," Admiral Park replied calmly. "That's all the authority we need." The Drakmori fleet found themselves in the same situation as every other force that had challenged humanity. Their ships lost power. Their weapons went dark. They couldn't move or fight or escape. "You have 1 hour to withdraw to your own territory," Admiral Park announced. "After that, we disable your ships permanently." The invasion fleet retreated within 30 minutes. One by one, the other Liberation Alliance members swallowed their pride and asked for human help. The Moltar Consortium requested assistance with their dying stars. The Velnari Republic asked for earthquake relief. The Outer Rim colonies begged for medical aid to fight the plague. In each case, human response was immediate and effective. Dying stars were stabilized. Earthquake victims were rescued. The plague was cured within days. But the price was clear. There would be no more rebellion against human authority. Ambassador Li Nari addressed the full council assembly 6 months later. Behind her, the main screen showed images of the restored Liberation Alliance worlds. "Today marks the implementation of the Extinction Prevention Doctrine," she announced. "From this point forward, humanity takes full responsibility for preventing the extinction of any galactic species." The doctrine was simple but absolute. Any species could request human withdrawal from their territory. But if that species faced an extinction-level threat, humans would intervene regardless of permission. No species would be allowed to destroy themselves or others. The galaxy would survive, even if individual civilizations had to be saved against their will. "We understand that some beings see this as oppression," Ambassador Li continued. "But we have learned something important during our long isolation. Freedom without survival is meaningless. You cannot enjoy liberty if you are dead." She gestured, and the screen showed dozens of thriving worlds where different species lived under human protection. "We have created something new in galactic history, a civilization where extinction is impossible." Every species under our protection will survive. Every world under our care will thrive. Every being in human space will have the chance to live, grow, and find happiness. But remember, her voice grew firm, we are not your rulers, we are your gardeners. And like any good gardener, we will prune away anything that threatens the health of the whole garden. The message was clear. Humanity had become the galaxy's permanent guardians. Species could govern themselves as they wished, but they could not threaten themselves or others. The new order was established. Wars were impossible because humans prevented them. Natural disasters were managed because humans controlled them. Extinctions were prevented because humans wouldn't allow them. Some beings called it paradise. Others called it a prison. But everyone agreed on one thing: the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Zhong Huan-Su stood in his garden on Earth, looking up at the stars. Each point of light represented worlds where different species lived, worked, and dreamed under human protection. Was this what we wanted? His wife asked as she joined him. It's what we needed, Dr. Zhong replied. 3,000 years ago, we faced extinction and chose to evolve instead of die. Now we're making sure no one else has to face that choice, alone. Above them, the stars shone peacefully in the night sky. The galaxy was safe.